Imu is about to repeat, child by child, the exact same crime he committed against the giants 800 years ago, and he just said it out loud. Stick with me, because chapter 1186 didn't just give us the most anticipated fight of the final saga. Luffy versus Imu, it also hid inside the reveal about Shuri's eyes. Proof that everything happening in Elbaph is just a mirror of what already happened before. And if those eyes are exactly what I think they are, Imu's plan didn't start now. It started 800 years ago, and nobody noticed until this exact chapter. What is Imu really trying to dig up inside this child's blood? Before we get into the theory, let's lay out exactly what chapter 1186 showed us. Because there's a lot of information floating around, the chapter picks up right where the war in Spelia left off. The world government attacks the kingdom. The people take up arms to resist, and Brook runs to the castle, where he finds the king collapsed and Princess Shuri beside him, alongside a holy knight named Guru and the shadow of Marcos Mars, being controlled remotely by Imu himself. Here's where the bomb drops. Shuri reveals that the man Brook always called her father isn't her biological father. Her real father is Guru, which means Shuri was born, by blood right, a celestial dragon. The reason for the entire war was never enslaving 1,000 people. The world government's one and only demand, from the start, was to hand over Shuri. And here's the detail most people glossed over. Both Guru and Shuri have one eye of each color. Guru openly admits he carries this same trait, but has never managed to awaken the power that comes with it. Then he drops the line that should have made everyone stop breathing. Maybe this child can, but that's not even the strangest part. The strangest part is what happened once Shuri finally attacked. For years, theorists have argued about devil fruits, the will of D, the void century. But almost nobody paid attention to the simplest detail in the chapter, in the present. Brook flat out says he didn't even know devil fruits existed back then, and always assumed what he saw was just a hallucination, except Oda, through Brook's own words later in the chapter, confirms it wasn't a hallucination at all. Shuri was under the effect of the dome reverse fruit, the exact same fruit that, in Elbaph, turns giants into monstrous creatures and puts them under total world government control. Here's the first connection almost nobody has made yet. The same weapon used against the giants of Elbaph 800 years ago was used against a 10-year-old child on an isolated island. That's not a coincidence of the plot. That's a pattern, and there's more. When Brook connects his old memories to what he's seeing now in Elbaph, giants turning into enemies against their own will, he arrives at the conclusion himself that Shuri was a victim, not a villain. But the detail that really changes everything comes straight from Imu's own mouth. Minutes later, already in Elbaph, for years, theorists have argued about devil fruits, the will of D, the void century. But almost nobody paid attention to the simplest detail in the chapter, in the present. Brook flat out says he didn't even know devil fruits existed back then, and always assumed what he saw was just a hallucination, except Oda, through Brook's own words later in the chapter, confirms it wasn't a hallucination at all. Shuri was under the effect of the dome reverse fruit, the exact same fruit that, in Elbaph, turns giants into monstrous creatures and puts them under total world government control. Here's the first connection almost nobody has made yet. The same weapon used against the giants of Elbaph 800 years ago was used against a 10-year-old child on an isolated island. That's not a coincidence of the plot. That's a pattern, and there's more. When Brook connects his old memories to what he's seeing now in Elbaph, giants turning into enemies against their own will, he arrives at the conclusion himself that Shuri was a victim, not a villain. But the detail that really changes everything comes straight from Imu's own mouth. Minutes later, already in Elbaph. Let's build this like a case, piece by piece, because each part here supports the next. First, Imu, fighting Loki, says the nature of a race doesn't change in a few centuries. He states that kidnapping the giant children will force the adult generation into complete obedience, and that history will inevitably repeat itself because it already has before. Second, the same chapter shows us, through Guru, that the two colored eyes are hereditary and tied to a power that Imu himself treats as too dangerous to reveal even to someone about to die for him, as was the case with Brook. Third, Guru mentions that this power might resemble the third eye of the Three-Eye Tribe, the very same bloodline tied to the Void Century. The Poneglyphs and the forbidden knowledge the world government kills to keep hidden. Now put the three pieces together. Imu is, at the same time, kidnapping giant children in Elbaph using Dome Reverse to repeat an 800-year-old domination, and hunting down a specific eye bloodline that might awaken a power connected to the oldest knowledge in the world. These two operations aren't happening in the same arc by accident. They're the same operation, just at different scales. One tries to control an entire people by force. The other tries to unearth a secret through a single child. What if Shuri's eyes aren't an isolated ability, but the missing genetic key Imu has been trying to access for 800 years? Here's the detail nobody's talking about. Guru says he himself carries the same eyes as Shuri, but never managed to awaken them. In other words, this trait isn't rare only in Spelia. It also exists among the Holy Knights, in the elite closest to Imu himself. That means the world government has known about this bloodline for far longer than any fan imagined. And if Guru has the same genetic trait and never awakened it, then what Imu is really testing in Spelia is a condition. Under what circumstances does this power wake up? And honestly, I don't know how I missed this before. Shuri awakens the eye precisely during extreme trauma, under the effect of Dome Reverse, at the exact moment she loses control of her own consciousness. It's no coincidence that Oda places this scene right before showing Imu doing the exact same thing to the giants of Elbaph, extracting obedience through controlled trauma. Suddenly, a completely different picture emerges. Imu isn't simply subjugating peoples for political power. He's literally repeating an experiment. If this theory is right, it completely changes how we should read the final saga. First, Elbaph stops being just another war and becomes a literal repeat of a Void Century event, which gives even more weight to the idea that Joy Boy and the Will of D exist specifically to break this cycle, not just to defeat Imu in a fight. Second, if Guru has the same eyes and never awakened them, that suggests Shuri's power isn't luck. It's a specific trigger which opens the door for other characters with the same bloodline we don't know about yet. Third, and maybe the most important point, Brook deciding to save Shuri isn't just an emotional moment. If Shuri is living proof that Imu's domination repeats generation after generation, saving her is, narratively, the first real step toward breaking that 800-year-old pattern. Fans who catch this now are going to read the entire Elbaph arc completely differently from anyone just skimming the surface. Now put it all together. A child with two colored eyes, hidden on an isolated island. A holy knight with the same trait, who never awakened the power. A world government willing to start an entire war just to capture this child. And in the very same chapter, the leader of that government confirming, in his own words, that he's repeating with the giants exactly what he already did 800 years ago. How did nobody connect these dots before? Personally, I think Oda has been building this since the very first mention of the Void Century back at the start of the series. And if I'm right, the moment Shuri's eye power finally gets explained is going to rewrite everything we thought we knew about what the world government is really hunting for. If this theory is correct, every scene in Elbaph from now on takes on a second meaning. But I want to know what you think. Did Oda plan this connection between Shuri's eyes and the giants from the very beginning? Or is it just another coincidence in a massive universe? Drop your theory in the comments. And if you want to finally understand the Will of D, the next video is right here.